Welcome to ASBN Live. I'm Tulasi Sivalinga. I'm the American Sustainable Business Network's Senior Manager of Programming and Events. We're excited to be back in February for this exceptional webinar brought to us by our leaders here. This one is called Clean Energy and Infrastructure, Impact and Opportunities. As a reminder, if you go to our website, asbnetwork.org, you can click our upcoming events to see everything coming up and register for webinars, working group meetings, anything else that catches your interest. It's now my pleasure to turn it over to our president and co-founder, David Levine.
Thanks, Tulasi, and welcome everyone. And for those of you not familiar, the American Sustainable Business Network is building a business movement, and it's partnering with business organizations, companies, and investors that collectively represent over 250,000 businesses. Together, that we're advocating and advancing innovation, solutions, and policies to support a more just and sustainable economy. You know, our mission and our work is to inform, educate, connect, and mobilize business leaders and investors so that together we could raise up our voice, implement and utilize our power to transform the public and private sectors towards this just and sustainable economy. So part of our work over the last number of years has been to advocate for things like the Infrastructure Bill and the Inflation Reduction Act, which is, unprecedented, in the scope and size of its ability to actually help move us towards this new economy and the like. And part of the way that we see this is not just the work at the national level, but it's really the work that we need to do at the state and at the local level and the like. And so, today it's both national in its scope, and our hope is, and we have many other of our affiliates on here today as well, and folks from across the country, but it's also to shine a light on the work and the opportunities that could take place, at the state and local level as well, which is why we're thrilled to be partnering with our Ohio Sustainable Business Council and with Ohio University. And, just as a way to demonstrate, I think the work that we all need to do together to keep educating our networks of businesses that really care about driving this new economy so that they can access these funds. And that's what we're hoping today could help to catalyze further. And, we're thrilled to be working with the Blue Green Alliance here today as well, a strong partner. So you got labor, you got environment, you have business, you have universities, it's together that we can really make the shift happen that is so necessary for tackling the major issues that confront us and the like. So, so we're thrilled that you're on with us today, but we also invite you to connect with us so we can continue to do this work across the range of issues that are necessary for us to build this new just and sustainable economy. So with that, let me now turn it over to Mayda Sanchez Shingler, who's the Executive Director of the Ohio Sustainable Business Council. Mayda?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayda Sanchez Shingler. I'm with the Ohio Sustainable Business Council. We are a statewide business membership organization with a mission to promote a vibrant and sustainable economy for Ohio. The provisions we'll be learning about today are targeted to bring down emissions and address climate change, all very important, but it will really do a lot more than that. The law provides businesses with the certainty they need to make long-term investments in cleaner ways to power our economy. By investing in these innovative manufacturing, we secure our supply chains, and then reshoring is also an opportunity for businesses to create millions of good paying jobs across the country. So here in Ohio, we're already seeing some of these investments, from battery cell production in Lordstown to microchips in central Ohio, but a lot more is needed all over the state to bring the diverse manufacturing to every corner, including southern Ohio, where these investments are long overdue. I look forward to learning along with you today. Thanks for joining us. Stephanie?
Thanks, Mayda. So I'm going to put up a few slides just to talk about how we came to be involved with ASBN as well as OSBC and have a lot of interface with folks at the Loan Program Office as well as the various federal initiatives. Felicity, can you put the first slide up, please? So as David said, I'm Stephanie Howe with Ohio University, and I echo his welcome to all of you and many thanks to our esteemed speakers today. So we want to talk a little bit about why we are co-sponsoring this with ASBN and OSBC, as well as our regional partners. You want to go to the next slide, Felicity, and I'll give a little bit of a background on what we're doing in Ohio. So at Ohio University, I lead a project with various partners, and we're supporting the Southern Ohio. If you go back one, please, to the picture. Felicity, can you go back one slide, please? There you go. So we're supporting the Southern Ohio Diversification Initiatives, or SODI, their redevelopment of a U.S. Department of Energy former gaseous diffusion plant in Southern Ohio. And this is an image of it, the way it looked when I met it about a little over a decade ago. So the plant is commonly referred to as PORTS, P-O-R-T-S. So this facility employed thousands of workers in the region for over 70 years, and it was a vital aspect of our nation winning the Cold War. It's also a really amazing asset to be leveraged to advance the clean energy economy. So as the site is undergoing cleanup and decommissioning, parcels of land and other site assets are being transferred to SODI for the purpose of redevelopment. Next slide. So for over a decade, Ohio University has been partnering with SODI and other stakeholders on a variety of site readiness activities. And in recent years, we've been working on engaging with industries that are aligned with the community preferences for future uses of the site. So here are some of our core partners. Next slide. So during 2010 through 2011, Ohio University conducted a very intensive grassroots public engagement effort to determine what the local community would like to see happen at the site post-cleanup. And they stated their future use preferences being the energy sector. Number one was nuclear, which we found interesting, as well as green energy production, manufacturing, and a research and development component. You can go down the next slide. So through a lot of work with many entities and experts over time, we took this input and it led SODI and Ohio University to develop the Ohio Valley Green Energy and Manufacturing Strategy. So we shorthand by calling it GEM. So GEM is an all of the above energy strategy. So this is really important to us. We aren't picking winners or losers. We're looking at the full complement of possibilities that we can use to employ to do all the things that David mentioned. And this facility will be to integrate and co-locate clean energy production with sustainable manufacturing. And we want to do that by deploying the technologies that we have now and adding other advanced technologies as they become commercialized and scalable. Next slide. So the work at GEM really is looking at some of the same things that Mayda mentioned. The top 5 goals are listed here. Decarbonizing energy production to combat the climate crisis, fostering sustainable and integrated manufacturing using circular economy approaches, reshoring supply chains, strengthening our nation's energy security, and really looking at creating thousands of well-paying union jobs in the process to help grow the middle class. And the final slide, please. So again, we just want to thank all of our co-sponsors, the great folks listed here. Pike County Chamber of Commerce is co-sponsoring this along with SODI and Ohio Valley Regional Development Commission. They are the Appalachian Regional Commission's local development district. All of these folks have been longtime partners over the years we've been working there. Great people. Amplifier Communications has been helping us a lot with our comms strategy and as well as our political interface. And we just hope you all enjoy the webinar. So I'll turn it over to Michael Green now.
All right. Well, thank you so much to all the sponsoring and co-sponsoring organizations for today and bringing this wonderful audience together. 141 people are dialed in today. That's pretty amazing and pretty impressive coming from across the country. Since you all are here, I can start out by saying thank you on behalf of ASBN. I lead the Climate and Energy Working Group, and as David nicely put it, the Climate and Energy resident at ASBN, and really excited to have a couple of our guest speakers sharing insights and how we can move forward after this monumental win last year. And I think, one of the big drivers for us is people just absolutely need to see the impact of the Inflation Reduction Act Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill in their backyard. We need to show folks that climate change means jobs. It means driving our economy to a clean transition. And it's something that is going to be done in a way that's just, equitable, and available to everyone, no matter what community you live in America, from rural Vermont, where I'm calling in today, to folks down in DC and really everything in between. Want to make sure that we're all represented in these conversations and all know the best ways to get access and get this money to work in our backyards, which I know a lot of folks looking at the chat are already fired up about. Let me just make one little pitch, though, before I hand it over and get the main program started, and say, if you find this topic interesting, you find this information helpful, let us know. Reach back out to us. We're all, especially on the ASBN side, very much available. You can find me in the Climate and Energy Working Group on the third Thursday of every month, and make sure that you're signed up for that if you're not already. So with that, we're going to kick things right off. And our first speaker today, and we couldn't be more excited to have Joshua Peck be joining us. And lovely green screen there behind him lets you know where, I don't think you're there now, but Josh is coming in from the White House where he does as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Engagement and Public Health and Human Services. In this role, he's led public education campaign to build confidence in the COVID vaccines, help boost enrollment in health insurance marketplaces. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from getting the public engaged in those two, really mass mobilizations into this next one of moving forward with the IRA. Now, prior to this current work, Mr. Peck was president of For Good LLC, where he's advised dozens of leading domestic and international businesses and nonprofits. He also co-founded Get America Covered, a nonprofit dedicated to helping people get covered and stay covered in the health insurance marketplaces. During the Obama and Biden administration, Mr. Peck served as the chief marketing officer for healthcare.gov. And was at the Department of Health and Human Services, where he was again responsible for enrollment and retention. So we're going to take that enrollment and retention strategy and apply it to climate and energy. Is that right, Josh? Really excited to have you, and thank you so much for the time. What we're going to do here is we're going to hand it over to Josh, let him talk for a bit, and then I'll introduce our other panelists. Go ahead and use the Q&A function right now, folks, to send in questions as they come up. And then we'll go to that after all three panelists have kind of done their introductory remarks. With that being said, Josh, I'm going to hand it over to you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael and David from ASBN, and Mayda from OSBC, and Stephanie from Ohio University for inviting me to join today. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to talk with you all about the Inflation Reduction Act. And right now, I'm a senior policy advisor in the Office of Clean Energy Innovation and Implementation, taking a lot of the lessons I've learned on COVID and on healthcare outreach, on how we can take so many of the consumer-facing provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act and make them accessible to as many people as possible. As many of you know, the Inflation Reduction Act invests some $370 billion in transforming the American economy to be powered by clean energy sources, from the power grid to the transportation system to our industrial base. It's going to do more than any other law in American history to build a clean energy economy and to combat climate change. But it also puts the United States on a strong path to achieving President Biden's ambitious climate goals, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% below 2005 levels by 2030, and to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. Taken together, the scale, scope, and speed of investments unlocked by the IRA will fundamentally reshape America's energy system. But the IRA is not just a climate law, it's one of the biggest jobs and economic development programs this country has ever seen. And with unprecedented resources for environmental justice, the IRA will enable the most significant progress in history to address legacy pollution and create economic opportunities in frontline and fence line communities. As my boss, John Podesta, likes to say, it's one thing to pass a law, it's quite another to implement it. And when it comes to the Inflation Reduction Act, we are still in the relatively early stages of implementation. In December, we released a plain English guidebook on all the clean energy and climate provisions in the IRA on cleanenergy.gov. We hope that the Inflation Reduction Act guidebook will be a valuable resource to business, local government, and others looking to understand how they can take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act provisions to build clean energy projects and drive investment. The Inflation Reduction Act doesn't include a lot of the formula funding that some of the other legislation like Bill does, but it does have several large grant programs of note. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund will award $27 billion in competitive grants to mobilize financing and leverage private capital for clean energy and climate projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The climate pollution reduction grants include $5 billion to provide grants to tribes, states, air pollution control agencies, local governments to develop and implement plans for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And then the Inflation Reduction Act also includes $3 billion to clean up air pollution at ports. And this program will award grants to states, port authorities, and others to purchase and install zero emissions equipment and technology. These programs will indirectly benefit not just the entities who receive them, like local governments, but the businesses and community organizations who will then play a role in implementing. But the lion's share of the IRA's investments will flow through the tax code, and most of the tax credits and incentives for clean energy went into effect on January 1st. That means there's a substantial role for the private sector in implementing the IRA. Importantly, new provisions in the law allow for something called direct pay and transferability, which also open up the IRA's clean energy tax provisions to state and local governments, nonprofit organizations, electric co-ops, and other actors who haven't historically been able to take advantage of these benefits. And a few of those tax credits may be of special interest to businesses. So that the Clean Electricity Investment Tax Credit means that when you add solar, wind, geothermal, or battery storage to a property, it's now eligible for up to a 30% tax credit. And importantly, that will be fully refundable to nonprofits and local government, and it does not require a tax liability. And projects that benefit low-income communities may be eligible for even more. If you're electrifying your vehicle fleet, new tax credits lower the cost of new EVs. This includes credits for both light-duty vehicles as well as heavy clean vehicles. If you're adding charging to a property that's both open to the public and either in a non-urban or in a low-income neighborhood, you're eligible for up to a 30% tax credit, up to $100,000. And then, finally, if you're doing new construction or retrofitting a building, there are new and enhanced credits for building new buildings and for retrofitting existing buildings if they achieve specific energy standards. So I think, it's important these benefits are not only available for businesses, but also for local governments and nonprofits. And so this, combined with 10 years of runway, is going to create a lot of new interest It's a big opportunity for businesses in the space because local governments and nonprofits will effectively, receive these benefits, and there's a new opportunity for them to be customers and to work with them on, taking advantage of all of these benefits. Similarly, the IRA has dozens of provisions that directly benefit the American people. A lot of these same tax credits for solar, wind, battery storage, new and used EVs, energy efficient heating and cooling equipment, for energy efficient windows, doors, insulation. If you're doing an electric panel upgrade, you have a home energy audit and more. All of those things are going to have credits available to them. And once again, businesses will play a critical role in delivering those new benefits to Americans. And then the Department of Energy announced in November nearly $9 billion that will be available to states and tribes for consumer home energy rebate programs. And in that announcement, they laid out state-by-state allocations for the two programs. Importantly, many states are going to work with local businesses to help implement those programs. So, on the rebate side, there is, another set of opportunities for businesses to work with government on implementation. The law isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all. It's going to look different in every city and state, and there's a different ecosystem that is likely going to evolve in the years to come. We're really interested in working with you all in an ongoing basis to make implementation succeed, and we'd love to hear from you about the opportunities and challenges you're seeing, and what assistance you think you need to succeed. So thank you again for having me, and excited to take any questions, I think, later in the program.
Mr. Peck, thank you so much. Yeah, folks, please do keep those questions coming in. And, we have some folks who are about as close to the source of this information as you can get. So really, really lucky and fortunate to be joined by you all today. And with that, we're going to move over to our next panelist. Brian Mahar. Brian, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And Brian leads stakeholder engagement and communications for the U.S. Department of Energy's Loan Program Office, LPO for short, to generate greater awareness of the role the LPO can play in financing transformative clean energy and transportation projects. Previously, he helped launch and build the LPO's outreach and business development efforts in order to attract new applications and for their high impact energy infrastructure projects. Since 2013, he's led the LPO public relations efforts to shine a light on the program's overall success. Prior to joining the LPO, Brian led a solar and energy efficiency practice called TigerCom, clean energy economy marketing and communications firm. So Brian, you have quite the background, and I think your perspective will be really appreciated to our business community on the call today. And so let's jump right in and over to you and help us learn more about the LPO program and how our businesses can take advantage of it.
Great, thanks, Michael. I apologize. I feel like I'm having a little bit of a lag here, so I hope everything's good on my connection. Cool. So let me just pull up. I just have a couple quick slides. Hopefully, just sort of support what I'm going to be talking about, but I'm not going to sort of run through a slide presentation. So as Michael was saying, we're the Loan Programs Office at the Department of Energy. So what does that mean? That means that we are really at the deployment end of things in the energy sector. So whereas the department has a 40-year track record of being one of the top R&D agencies in the government, the bill and IRA have actually expanded out that mission to really include large-scale demonstration and deployment of technologies. The LPO has been doing that for about 10 years already, so we're really excited to have a lot more sort of influence and be able to get more money out the door so that we can get projects in the ground. So that's what we're really here to be about, to take transformative energy technologies that can't access loans in the commercial market. That's where we come in. We sort of fill this gap to be able to provide loans to build the projects that we really need to advance our clean energy and economy goals. And I think that's sort of laid out here by our director, Jared Shaw. Again, we kind of come in where the commercial sector won't come in. To do that, we sort of have this bridge to bankability that we talk about, and that's taking technologies that are have been demonstrated. You know, that we know that they work, but commercial lenders just aren't ready to jump in. They're sort of a very conservative crowd. They want to do the things that they know and they know how to do well. We're here to come in and say, you know, here's a technology that we think is going to be very important for our economic future. Commercial lenders won't quite jump in and be the first movers here. So this is where we come in. And this is where we come in because we have this great combination of both financial expertise as lenders and technical expertise. We're really kind of unique. If you think of us like a bank, we're a bank that has an entire team of engineers backed by 100,000 scientists at the Department of Energy to really dig deep and understand technologies and how they can be scaled up to reach full market acceptance. And what we mean by full market acceptance is that commercial banks are going to come in and they're going to do it on their own. So we're really trying to sort of take the ball and then pass it very directly to the commercial sector once we've gone through. And again, we sort of lay out some of these stages, right? It's that first commercial scale project for a technology. It's sort of building up a supply chain for innovative technology sectors, dealing with some of those chicken and egg problems that we come in. It's, you know, as these technologies are building scale, and, you know, maybe we've demonstrated that they can work at commercial scale, but, you know, investors really, they're not quite there yet. So we can kind of help do some of those first deals and really we can say, you know, copy our homework, please, because we need to scale this up. So this is where we come in. Again, just trying to build that bridge so that technologies just, you know, don't get left out or don't get you know, picked up you know, by other, you know, economic competitors around the world. We want to be the leaders in these sorts of things. So as I said, you know, it's the Loan Programs Office. So we have several programs that we support. So I'll just run through these quickly and kind of what they're intended to do. The first one is our, it's called Title 17. I hate using that. That's very DC legislative speak. We really call it our Clean Energy Financing Program. And we have a couple of different things that we can do with that. One is that we can support innovative energy projects. So as I was saying, these are projects that have a technology that maybe hasn't been deployed at scale in the US. And we can come in, again, because we've got the technological expertise to really understand those technologies and how they're going to scale up. IRA gave us some additional funding and authority to really focus on supply chains as well, not just those sort of generation technologies that are out there, but how do we build supply chains? I think, you know, when we look at perhaps, you know, the offshore wind industry, you know, not just building the wind farms offshore, but what are the things that we need in terms of manufacturing wind turbines in the US and things like that. So that's a really exciting program. And then, you know, also the IRA gave us authority to help to guarantee loans provided by state energy financing institutions. So those are things like state green banks. And in this, it's really exciting because IRA waived the innovation requirement. So this is really great because we can kind of help capitalize, you know, some of the efforts by these state green banks to invest in their states, and then we can come in and really help them scale it up because a lot of these programs have sort of smaller budgets. We have some significant capital, and I probably should have said it off the top of the head. We've got about $300 billion available across all of these programs. So it's our way of being able to help scale up the work that state green banks are doing. And then this third one is has kind of an overlap. And we're talking about advanced transportation. So we can help with the deployment of sort of cleaner fleets. You know, if states and municipalities are trying to scale up their fleets of electric vehicles or things like that, or if we're trying to deploy EV charging or hydrogen charging to support newer generation of vehicles, we can help again through this clean energy financing program. But we also have a program called the Advanced Technology Vehicles Manufacturing Loan Program, which is dedicated to manufacturing. We've done that several times. We've worked with Tesla for their first factory in California. We've also worked with Ford and Nissan back about 10 years ago. And we just had some really exciting new loans come out in this program that are really helping support the EV battery supply chain. So we've moved a little bit from the vehicle manufacturing itself to manufacturing the components. I'm really excited. One of our new projects, Ultium Cells, has a facility in Lordstown, Ohio. So great to be supporting Ohio for that program. And then another new sort of bill IRA program is the Energy Infrastructure Reinvestment Program. And this is here to help provide loan guarantees to help retool or repurpose existing energy assets. So think of something like a coal plant that maybe is going to be retired. If the owner wants to reinvest in that to make it a cleaner energy source and to use that existing energy infrastructure, the transmission lines that go there, the skilled workforce that works there that understands the power sector, and maybe we want to use that footprint for to install solar or maybe a small modular nuclear reactor, something like that. That is what this program is for. It's really exciting. We have about $250 billion available to use this over the next, I think, 4 years we have on this one. So really exciting program to, again, use our existing energy assets, but do it in a cleaner way. Our next program is our Tribal Energy Loan Program. This is really exciting for us as well. And IRA gave us, we've gone from having $2 billion to $20 billion available. And this is here to help tribes to own their own energy assets. So it's to give them the capital to be able to own energy assets to really support tribal sovereignty and economic development. Projects can be on tribal land or off tribal land. The key point is that the tribe needs to be a majority owner of the project. And that's really exciting because a little bit to something Josh was talking about direct pay. There was another part of the IRA, which now allows tribes to be able to enjoy some of the tax credits that previously they hadn't been able to enjoy. So that's pretty exciting as well. And then finally, our Carbon Dioxide Transportation Infrastructure Program, or CIFIA. This is for the carbon capture projects that are starting to happen around the country. As I mentioned, chicken and egg problems. There's a lot of excitement for that, but how do you transport the carbon from those projects to where it will maybe be used or sequestered? So how do you build that infrastructure? We're here to come in for that one as well. And this is just a quick overview of kind of where we are. We're having a lot of interest. We've got 126 active applications that have come in that we're actively working on in a number of really interesting sectors. As I mentioned, a little bit of the advanced vehicles and components that we've had a lot of excitement over, but you can see as well, carbon management technologies, biofuels, virtual power plants is a really interesting play as well. So those are grid interactive, distributed energy resources. So a lot of different areas. And that's, I think, one of the exciting things about the Loan Programs Office is that we can really work across all energy sectors. And then my final slide here, again, hopefully we can share this as well. But this lists even more some of the technology areas of interest that we're seeing interest in. Now, this isn't exclusive. Certainly, we can come as long as a project meets our eligibility standards. We're very happy to talk to them. And really, the best way to engage with us, and I think this is what's kind of unique for us as a government agency, is we really like to engage in pre-application consultation. So instead of just sort of throwing an application together, throwing it over the fence and hoping you hear back, we have staff that we've built up about 30 outreach and business development professionals across the energy sectors who are here to talk with you before you put in an application so that you can better understand how a project might fit in with the Loan Programs Office, whether it would fit in, and what sort of the process would be like to work with us. And it's, in many ways, it's very similar to working with a commercial lender. So, with that, really excited to be able to hopefully have some projects come in and to be happy to answer any questions towards the end. Thanks, Michael. Back to you.
All right. No, thank you, Brian. And we're going to move us right along here and get into our next speaker. As David said, we're excited to bring a few different perspectives here. Some of our partners on the ground, partner organizations who are doing some amazing national work, and Blue Green Alliance absolutely fits the bill there. Really excited to be joined by Katie Harris. Katie is the legislative director at Blue Green Alliance, where she leads the Alliance's federal policy efforts on a variety of issues, including infrastructure, climate, and coal community issues. Katie has quite the eclectic background, spanning from energy, environment to cultural heritage and higher education. In her past life, she was an archaeologist who managed natural resources and researched how prehistoric societies dealt with a changing climate and economies. Katie has most recently applied this background on Capitol Hill as a professional staffer, science policy fellow, and now with the Green Blue Alliance. So Katie, just so excited to have you join us, and maybe a couple of those other topics we'll have to have you on a working group call later on. But with that, we're going to hand it over to you and hear about the Blue Green Alliance and the work you're doing to support some of the programs that we heard mentioned by our previous two speakers. Thanks so much, Katie.
Thanks so much, Michael, and always happy to talk archaeology, even though it is sort of my past life, you might say. So I do have a few slides here, and hopefully they'll load up for you. There we go. But I'll tick through them pretty quickly, so don't be frightened. Happy to share these afterwards. I'll quickly hit on sort of the significance in a few ways, as folks have been talking of, particularly the IRA, and discuss some resources that BGA put together to help make sense of all of these amazing investments. And then I'll just quickly run through a couple of the big investments that we see being the most important here. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with BGA as maybe some folks on this call, we're a national coalition of labor unions and environmental nonprofits. And the whole premise of us getting together and working together is that we shouldn't have to choose between good jobs and a clean environment. So that's why we're so excited about the Inflation Reduction Act, and in fact, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, is because we see that premise being at least somewhat fulfilled in those two laws. So what are we talking about when we're talking about the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law? There's massive investments in both of those bills. Joshua said, 370 billion from the Inflation Reduction Act. There's about 1.2 trillion in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and in a whole bunch of different sectors. So it's not even possible to get into all of these on one webinar. You've seen some of that from our friends at LPO, which is great. And I'm just going to tick through a few here as well. But you're probably thinking, wow, there's a lot in these bills, and it's kind of confusing. And that's why we created a resource center, which I will share at the end and direct you to and give you the link to. The whole goal of it is to try and demystify some of this. So we'll come back to that. So Inflation Reduction Act is really transformational. You've seen and heard some of these stats already today, but it really does a little bit of everything. It should reduce emissions. It should on-source supply chains. If we do it right, it can sustain and expand high-quality union jobs for workers as well. So what we're really working on is taking sort of the promise of what's in the bill and making sure that as implementation happens, we're making sure that the funding is going out to the communities that need it most, and that the jobs are going to create good union jobs. And what we found when we sat back and we analyzed this thing, we commissioned a study, and we found that it could create up to 9 million jobs over the next 10 years. So that's a pretty good chunk of jobs. There's a few of these flying around now, but you can see even in just the various sectors here that there's a lot of potential. And as you heard, we're just sort of getting rolling on the implementation side of things. So this is what we're shooting for here, and preferably, for us in the good, clean union job side of things. What do I mean by that? I want to focus on three specific sections of the Inflation Reduction Act, just really fast here: the clean energy tax credits, the manufacturing, and the sort of EV supply chain side of things. So the IRA, I'm just going to start using its acronym, strengthens and establishes new tax credits and actually mostly expands existing tax credits for all of these various sectors here. And most importantly, it actually, for the first time, also comes with standards to ensure good job quality, domestic content, and make sure that we're locating projects in low income and energy transition communities. So to get a little bit more specific on that, if you're a developer and you're trying to take advantage of this tax credit, you have to pay prevailing wage and utilize a certain percentage of registered apprentices on your project. There's a bonus for boosting domestic manufacturing, and then there's also 2 other bonuses essentially for housing your project in an energy transition community. So primarily probably thinking coal communities here, but not necessarily. And then for communities that are low income. All of this isn't going to happen automatically, right? There's going to be a lot of effort on the part of the administration, folks like myself, folks out on the ground to make sure that these investments are actually going out to these various communities. There's also a lot for manufacturing in this bill, in the Inflation Reduction Act. There's about $50 billion that would go towards emissions reduction, supply chain onshoring, and it's just going to be an absolute massive game changer when we're talking about US clean manufacturing. What do we have here? We've got investments on a couple of fronts. We've got a supply side front, and we've got a demand side front. So there's a new manufacturing production tax credit. I already sort of mentioned that, and that's, as you've heard referred to, as the direct pay. So some nonprofit entities are eligible for this direct pay. There's an expanded 48C tax credit that's $10 billion in investments. And there's a $4 billion chunk of money set aside for coal communities specifically. So really trying to drive investment to communities that need it. There are grants, loans, and a few different ways these will go out. And you've heard some of this already today, to reduce emissions for aluminum, steel, cement, all of the things that we really need to build this clean energy economy and address climate change. And then there's a little bit of money for the Defense Production Act that should help with some loans and technology upgrades, that sort of a thing. And then on the demand side, the federal government is one of the biggest purchasers of all of these like heavily emissions heavy materials. So there's some money in there to support what we call Buy Clean, the administration's Buy Clean initiative. It's basically purchasing low carbon materials and really making sure that the manufacturing of those materials are low carbon. And then again, there's a domestic content bonus. So making sure that while we're trying to stand up all this infrastructure, we're also trying to do it here in the United States and make sure that those good union energy jobs are created here. So that was a lot all at once. Like I said, I'll share the slides. Don't want to spend too much time on the nitty gritty here because there's a lot going on. So taking all of this in account, we've got, $2 trillion of investment, give or take. We thought, wow, there's a lot in here. We don't even know what all of this is. Let's go and try and figure out what exactly we're looking at here. So we created what we're calling a resource center, which is basically just like a one-stop shop where we say, okay, here's the program, here's where it's housed, here's who's eligible to take advantage of it. Provides a little bit of background on why things are important. It talks about some levers that are available for the job quality and equity pieces, gives some basic timelines, and then talks a little bit about things that just didn't make it in the bill, for example. And then we do have some fact sheets on individual policy areas and laws. So the ones I just covered, they have their own little fact sheets, which you can download. Here's what it looks like. I'm going to pop out of screen share for a second here so I can go to the website itself. And I'll pop back in. Come on, slides. There we go. All right. So here's what this website looks like. When you navigate to it, you'll see sort of the landing page. It talks a bit about the job creation potential. And then we have 2 user guides here as well. We have a user guide to the Inflation Reduction Act. We have a user guide to the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. You click on these, you'll get to go all the way in and see, you can download the document. You can see a summary of key policy provisions. You can see the provisions by agency. So a lot of different ways you can sort of crunch the data here, basically. And then if you're interested in sort of a shorter version, because those are somewhat long themselves, we also have some nice little fact sheets here. So we've got one on the clean energy tax credits, one on the manufacturing investments, and one on the clean vehicle provisions. And there's a few other things you can find in here. For example, we've got a link to build.gov because it's a very useful place, and I believe has already been dropped in the chat. So with that, I will pause and I will drop this link in the chat for you all as well, and happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Katie. And the resource you guys put together was so phenomenal and amazing that we actually, when we launched our Inflation Reduction Act page on the ASBN website, we linked out to it because we just think that it's such an awesome resource for folks to tap into and use. So thanks for putting it here in the chat. We've got a couple of other resources on that page too, some of the things that have been mentioned here in the call, and we'll be sure to share that with y'all. So we're going to move into, we got a little bit over 10 minutes probably for Q&A. So give folks a few minutes to get their thoughts together and their questions together. And I am going to start us off with a few questions just to make sure that we can clarify some things and make sure we're, taking account that we have some actionable items coming out of today's conversation. And one of the first things that, this is really for the panel as a whole. But how can our businesses and our business community support the IRA spending decision-making and decisions in essential infrastructure choices that are being made in our communities? And I'm not sure if there's anyone who wants to jump at that first.
Maybe I'll take a first crack at it. I'm sure Brian has a more specific example. I think for us, it's all about learning about it, which is why we put together the user guide. You can't really take advantage of what you don't know. So I would say if you're really interested in specific aspects of it, just learn as much as you can. There's a lot of information up on the administration website now, and there's actually some opportunities to submit comments, but I know that's not within everybody's wheelhouse. I'm sure Brian has other thoughts.
Yeah, happy to mention that as well. I mean, part of what happened here was there's a bit of a reorganization at the Department of Energy and the creation of a new Undersecretary for Infrastructure that the LPO falls under, and they're really running with all the funding for Bill and IRA. I'll drop a link in the chat to learn more about that. But we really are trying to better understand from the private sector, what are your needs, and then how can we direct this spending? I mean, some of it is congressionally directed. We have we're somewhat limited in what we can do, but there are other definite areas where there are decisions to be made, and there are a whole lot of other outside of LPO. Our Office of Clean Energy Demonstrations has a significant amount of money there as well, and our Grid Deployment Office, the State and Community Energy Partnership Office. So there's a lot of offices there. So I'll drop a link in the chat to talk about a lot of these other funding opportunities that are available through Bill and IRA. And we are a lot of, we are, as Joshua said, we're in implementation season. So a lot of it's already moving, and we're excited to get it out the door, but I think there are still opportunities to kind of weigh in on those things and where you'd like to see that directed.
Great, thank you for that. And, one of the things that has come up a lot with our business membership and chatting over the opportunities here is, really what does the energy transition look like for the small business community? And what are the new solutions that they're going to have access to? Some folks in our business have already joined up with solar gardens or done solar installs. They've done what they think they can to make their brick and mortar as energy efficient or as reasonable as possible. What are new things that they should be on the lookout and ways that they can get involved?
I'm happy to jump in there. This is outside of the LPO's lane, but I think the department has been, so follow our social media. I think our social media team does a great job of putting out kind of how, I can, you can't see it because of my background here, but how do I get a Nest installed? How do you do that? Something like that. So I think we're really trying to work to tell more people about the story of how they sort of, as a consumer, can go out and doing that. For LPO, we're really focused on businesses and sort of large scaling of big technologies, but I mean, there's a lot that we're doing to help get that out there. So definitely, encourage following DOE's social media page. We really try to get a lot out there on Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram, all those things to let people know what Bill and IRA have made available to consumers.
I can add a couple of things. I think as you said, I know a lot of small businesses have already done a lot to sort of improve the energy efficiency, of their business. There's always sort of more that can be done, and something is going to break in the next 10 years, and that thing when it gets replaced, there'll be new, more efficient things that are out there. And I think one of the things the IRA does is it helps create sort of more price parity, for those items. So that's just, that's an ongoing thing that we're all going to have to continue to do. But I think there's some new provisions in it that are potentially interesting for folks. For example, there's the alternative fuel refueling tax credit, which allows folks to install, EV charging, and provides a pretty substantial tax credit. The battery storage is another, new sort of technology that now has some of those benefits implemented. And then I think the other thing I'll just sort of speak to is that those businesses that sort of serve this sort of sector more broadly, I think the opportunities that exist for them to sort of provide service and support are going to abound. And we have a lot to expect coming.
Thanks, Josh. And I'm going to keep it with you just for one question, because a chat question came in here in the Q&A that I wanted to field over to you, because I know there's a lot in the IRA that touches on this. But what is being done, or it should be done, in order to make sure that African American communities are not left out, as they've been marginalized in the past, especially given the lack of representation in our call here today, which I hear you and appreciate the comment. But Josh, what can we do to make sure that marginalized communities are really taking advantage of these policies and of these opportunities?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think something that's pretty actually exciting about the Inflation Reduction Act is the way it at a number of different levels works to prioritize frontline and frontline communities in funding. So, I talked about sort of the large grant programs that we have for communities. Almost all of those programs are really targeted at low income or disadvantaged communities. A lot of the tax credits, and I should say we're still waiting on specific guidance on a lot of them, so where I can speak in some detail about how they're going to work. But most of the tax credits also offer additional benefits, for low income communities. So, and then the last thing I'll say is just the rebate programs for home energy efficiency, which in some cases will cover 100% of the costs for people to install energy efficient equipment. Those are, again, they have they're looking at income as sort of, that's critical for eligibility. You have to be below a certain level of the area median income to qualify. And what's unique about the IRA relative, I think, to a lot of these programs in the past is that so much of this is really built in to how the program is going to disperse, funding. But, that said, how we ultimately, how this works in implementation really does matter. And so that's something that, our office is really committed to sort of seeing through. So we have a really an awesome start. There's a lot of opportunity, but we still have a long way to go.
And I'll add for the Loan Programs Office, we're currently under a rulemaking for our clean energy financing program that we'll be getting out hopefully early this spring, and requirements for community benefits plans for our projects, things like that. We're really taking a look at that. And Secretary Granholm has really hammered home the Justice 40 initiative that 40% of our investments should go to communities that that have been disadvantaged in the past, and that's been a real commitment. I've been at the department for 10 years now, and I've really seen this leadership take a focus on making sure that communities that have not had access can start getting that access.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Josh. And Saw a few questions come into the chat and into the Q&A here that's talking about the role between these different opportunities and muni or state policies that are already in place. So if you could please just go over a little bit of the interaction and how they support state policies. And we got a couple of folks asking specifically more about green banks in the interconnection between the funding opportunities and green banks that are most likely at the state level.
Yeah, and I dropped, hopefully it showed up in the chat. We have a really good blog about this to talk about that. And it includes actual some examples of the types of projects that we could potentially work with on that. So I think that's hopefully really helpful. But yeah, we work with like housing finance authorities, economic development authorities, the state green bank, or state energy office itself. If they have something like float bonds or things like that, then that's probably something that we could work with. So again, as I mentioned, we're undergoing a rulemaking, so we'll have a little bit more detail about that. But the blog I posted in the chat, I think it's a really good way to look through that. And if there are questions on a specific project, then you can reach out to us for pre-application consultation so we can talk through it and see if there is really something that we could move forward with and what would that be like. And I think I've chatted it, but it's lpo@hq.doe.gov. And that'll give you a lot more information on how to engage with us.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. And Katie or Josh, anything else on that?
I think I'd just say that the EPA has the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which also is in the very early stages of implementation. And so I expect that that entity will be interacting a lot with state green banks, but haven't seen much concrete there yet.
Great. Thanks so much.
I would just add that, these, all of the incentives, whether they be tax credits or rebates, a lot of, states and cities are already sort of layering on additional, benefits. The states will also play a really vital role in the implementation of the rebate programs. So I think there's going to be real opportunities for cities and states to take a lot of the foundation that's created by the IRA and build really robust programs that use those funds to really move forward so many of the goals that they're sort of setting at the state and local level as well.
Great. And Joshua, with a few minutes that we have left, I'm going to maybe just kind of go around the horn here quickly, and we'll go Joshua, Brian, Katie. Get us fired up. Give us, I like to think of this as the moment of, if we were ever have a moment of optimism in the climate movement, this is really it. So in closing, what can you tell us? What can we do next in order to stay involved and get fired up for this opportunity?
Yeah, well, I think the thing I would encourage folks to feel right now is a sense of urgency. I think everybody who's talked to you today has talked about the very, very long list of provisions that are in the IRA, and that, a whole variety of parts of our society can take advantage of. And I think, Katie mentioned it's really important to sort of get familiar and to learn about this stuff, because I think there's a lot of these elements that just people aren't totally familiar with yet, and they don't exactly know how it works. So there are cities all around the country who have no idea that all of these benefits now exist, that they're going to be able to take advantage of. And when we think about the next 10 years and what's possible, so much of the challenge is going to be about creating enough awareness soon enough so that people can take advantage of the full 10 years of these benefits as they exist. So just really encouraging you all to use the months ahead of us to start to familiarize yourself and to educate those that you're interacting with about these opportunities, because I would not assume that people are familiar.
Yeah, I'd build on that, Josh. Yeah, our mantra is deploy, deploy, deploy. I think the Secretary has talked about having our hair on fire, maybe not quite that much, but yeah, making people aware of what's there, and understand, like, we're here, we're not a black hole. Particularly in the Loan Programs Office, we have, again, I mentioned we've got like about 30 people who are just dedicated to talking to businesses, that are trying to do these projects. So, we've got real live people on the end of the phone line there who are here to talk to you. And I think that's something that maybe is a little unexpected, but it is very true about what we're doing at the DOE.
Yeah, I think I just echo what both Brian and Josh have said. Get to know this thing. There's a lot of people working on this, and we really are just at the beginning of implementation. So there's a lot to be done still here in a good way, in a really positive way. So please get the word out, and any way we can help, please let us know.
Well, thank you so much. And look at that, we're right on time. We will be sending out the recording of this, as well as I believe the slides and some of the other resources that are mentioned to everyone. Katie, Brian, Josh, thank you so much. Deploy, deploy, deploy. Let's move forward together. Hope to be a resource for you all at ASBN. Let the working group or let us know how we can be helpful. And with that, that concludes today's event. Thank you so much to our co-sponsors and Mr. Levine for starting us off. And with that, hope to see you all soon. Appreciate it.